Jessica's here to help talk about critical plane of focus. I'm going to give you a couple other pointers as well on how to exactly focus your camera, kind of set everything up. We'll talk about rule of thirds again later on, but this will kind of give you a good little primer as to where that stuff may go and help you out with some of this intermediate shooting that we have. The first thing that Chapter 3 talks about is the critical plane of focus. And the critical plane of focus and the whole circles of confusion thing gets, well, confusing if you don't really know what it means. But essentially, every camera setting between an aperture and a shutter speed will have a range of focus. So what that means is, if you focus right here on Jessica's eyes, the area that's in focus could be back here, it could be all the way back against the wall, it could be, if you can see through that room back there, all the way through back there. Other things like landscape, you know, if there's some mountains behind, those could still be in focus. And in front, it'll come out to a point maybe here, could also come up to a point all the way up to the camera. And the way that is specified is through both your aperture size, your opening, your proximity to the subject, which means how close you are to the subject, and the length of your lens. So when we're talking about a situation like this, like if we're shooting Jessica for portraiture, what you would want to do is have a longer focal length, something at least like an 80mm on a DSLR, probably something more on a telephoto range on a point and shoot type camera. And what happens with that is when you are more telephoto or at a longer focal length, it will compress space. And the one thing to look at is if you ever shoot something with a really wide angle lens, what happens is you get that kind of what I call a horsey effect, where it'll draw that distance between things and exaggerate that. So if you ever see like those fisheye photos, everyone has these big gigantic noses, and that's a result of having a really wide angle lens. And sometimes, you know, if you're out with your friends at the bar, you know, the widest setting you have is probably not a good thing anyway if you're all kind of like red-cheeked and drunk and, you know, taking photos really close with the wide-angle lens. You end up looking really horsey. So zoom out and save your friends a little embarrassment on Facebook. What I'm going to do is take a bunch of different photos here so you can see exactly how those work. But again, portraiture, longer lens, telephoto kind of point of view. And what will happen is it'll compress that space. It's more flattening on the face, and it's more flattering to the overall composition. What it'll do is also draw back that depth of field. If you're shooting with a wider aperture, it'll exaggerate that even more. You can get things down to, you know, from her eye to her cheek, where that's the only area that's in focus and everything else is out of focus. So if you're shooting something really telephoto, really wide open, you've got to be, it's even more critical to take advantage of and look at how those things may work, because it gets really hard and the eyes aren't in focus. It's going to be a hard thing to get people to pay attention to your photo. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and take a couple photos. Those are in course documents, you can see those, and I'll put a big one together so you can see how they all fit and compare.